My parents said I poisoned my wife's mind just because I refused to hand them my house for my brother. What they did to her next shattered everything I thought I knew about family. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Growing up, my parents always idolized Ryan. I tried to earn their love straight A's, extra chores, never complained. But every birthday, Ryan got cake, gifts, and a party while I got a handshake. One year, they gave him a bike and handed me his old shoes. That image, his shiny bike next to my tattered sneakers, still burns. I thought if I worked harder, they'd finally see me. They never did. In high school, Ryan crashed my car while drunk. My parents blamed me for letting him take it. He laughed in my face while I scrubbed oil from the driveway. I paid for repairs with my college savings. When I asked why he wasn't punished, Mom said, "He's just going through a phase." That was the moment I knew their loyalty wasn't blind, it was deliberate. Ryan could do anything, and I'd still pay the price. After I left home, I rebuilt my life with Megan. We freelanced, saved, and finally bought a small house. It was ours, no strings. Then my parents showed up with Ryan and his fiancée, demanding we hand over the house. "It makes more sense for Ryan to have it," Mom said. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. They truly believed my success was theirs to reallocate. Megan clutched my hand, eyes wide with disbelief. When I refused to hand over the deed, my father slammed his coffee mug against the table. "You're ungrateful," he hissed. Ryan just smirked, arms folded like he owned the place. Megan tried to mediate, but they ignored her. That night, we found a dead rat on our porch. No note, just the rotting message. Megan cried. I started checking locks twice. We didn't want to believe it, but things were just beginning to unravel. We tried to move on. But my parents kept showing up uninvited. Once, they parked across the street for hours, just staring. Megan called the police, but by the time they arrived, the car was gone. No proof. When I confronted them, Mom said, "We're just making sure you're safe." I stopped answering their calls. Megan installed cameras. That's when we noticed Ryan coming around too alone, late at night, always leaving before dawn. We were being watched. Megan's work laptop got hacked, files deleted, passwords changed. It said it looked like an inside job. We changed all our passwords. That night, I found Ryan's old phone number on our Wi-Fi access log. He'd been in the house or close enough to spoof our network. Megan wanted to leave town, just for a while, but I couldn't let them push us out. I started keeping a bat by the front door. Something was coming, then came the lawsuit. A court notice arrived claiming I'd promised the house to Ryan. My parents swore under oath it was a verbal agreement. The judge didn't throw it out immediately. Megan sat beside me, stunned. Our lawyer warned it could drag on for months. I asked my father why he was doing this. He said, "Family comes first. Ryan has a baby on the way." As if that erased everything, I almost threw up. Ryan posted on Facebook claiming I stole from our family and was mentally unstable. Hundreds of comments poured in. Extended relatives, old neighbors, even former teachers chimed in. "Always knew something was off about him," one wrote. Megan defended me online and got harassed in DMs. One cousin called her a gold digger brainwashing Lucas. My hands shook reading it all. I deactivated everything. We were being socially erased. I couldn't believe how fast lies spread. Our mailbox was smashed. Twice the cops took a report but did nothing. Megan started parking 2 blocks away out of fear. At night, I'd hear footsteps outside, always gone when I checked. One evening, I found a torn photo of us on our doorstep, half burned. Megan's face blackened out. My stomach dropped. "They're warning us," she whispered. I nodded, but I wasn't going to run, not from my own family, not from this war. Just before the hearing, Megan found a fake eviction notice taped to our front door. It looked official, county logo, legal wording, but it was a forgery. Our lawyer confirmed it. When I confronted Ryan, he just grinned. "Guess you shouldn't have been nicer to Mom," he said. I wanted to punch him, but Megan pulled me away. My parents stood behind him, silent, complicit. That was the day I stopped calling them family in my head. In court, I sat across from my parents and Ryan. They claimed I was mentally unstable and had fabricated everything. Megan submitted our security footage and Wi-Fi logs. Ryan laughed as it played, unbothered. That the judge asked for more evidence, without documentation. "It's just words," she said. My father whispered something to Ryan. They were confident, too confident. Megan squeezed my hand. I realized we were going to lose unless we found something irrefutable fast. 2 nights after the hearing, I caught Ryan on our porch. He froze when I stepped out. "Just checking on you," he smirked. I took out my phone and hit record. "Say that again," he shoved me. Megan rushed out, yelling for him to leave. He walked off casually, flipping us off. That video became our weapon. Our lawyer said it showed intent and escalation. It wasn't enough to win, but it opened the judge's eyes. Megan's coworker, a retired cop, reviewed our footage and logs. He spotted something: Ryan's car plate in a reflection during one of the stalking incidents. We submitted it with a sworn statement. Ryan denied it, but the footage spoke louder. Still, the court date dragged on. Every week felt like a year. My anxiety spiraled. Megan held me each night. "We'll survive this," she whispered. I wanted to believe her. But fear knotted every thought. Then the attack happened. I came home to find the front door broken. Megan missing. Her phone was on the floor. Screen shattered. I called 911 shaking. The police arrived within minutes. Our neighbors had seen a van speeding off. My world collapsed. I screamed at the officers, demanding answers. One asked, "Do you think your family is involved?" I just stared, unable to speak. My wife was gone. And I knew this wasn't random. This was war. 12 hours later, Megan called from a motel. "She's escaped. My parents had taken her, claimed they were saving her from me. They said I was abusive, brainwashed her. They locked her in a room, confiscated her phone, but she kicked the window screen out and ran." I raced to her. We filed charges that night. Kidnapping, unlawful restraint. Megan's wrists were bruised. The look in her eyes, terror, fury, love burned into me forever. The trial resumed with new charges. The courtroom was tense. My parents' lawyer spun lies about concern and family duty, but Megan testified. Voice shaking but strong. The bruises were undeniable. Photos, motel receipts, her testimony, it all lined up. The judge ordered my parents into custody pending full trial. Ryan was silent, jaw tight. For the first time, his smugness cracked. We walked out. Not as victims but as survivors ready for war. This wasn't over. After the kidnapping charges, Ryan went dark. No social media, no visits. We thought he was distancing himself. But then we got the letter, a legal notice. Ryan was suing us for emotional damages caused by Megan's false accusations. It was a desperate move. Our lawyer laughed, but I didn't. This wasn't over. It was a shift. Ryan wasn't just greedy, he was vindictive, willing to weaponize the system to keep hurting us. And it was working. Our lawyer discovered something chilling. Ryan's legal team was partially funded by a shell company. Tracing it back, we found my father had secretly transferred money months before the assault. It was premeditated. They were planning the lawsuit and abduction together. Megan nearly vomited when she saw the documents. My parents had called it intervention. But they had prepared for war. This wasn't dysfunction, it was a conspiracy. Every family memory twisted into a weapon. A journalist reached out after seeing court records. She wanted to expose the whole story. At first, we hesitated, but then Megan said, "Let's end their lie." The article ran with security footage, legal filings, and Megan's bruises. The headline, "Family Feud or Criminal Cult," it went viral. Ryan's fiancé left him, his employer suspended him, my parents' church denounced them. For once, public opinion wasn't against us. The world saw the truth and believed it. Ryan retaliated by releasing a video, an old clip of me yelling during a college argument. He edited it to look abusive. The internet split. Some called me dangerous, others defended me. Megan posted the full uncut clip. It showed Ryan taunting me about our dead dog, then laughing. The backlash flipped. Ryan's plan backfired, but the damage was done. I saw how easily truth gets warped. The fight wasn't just legal now, it was public and endless. A private investigator contacted us. Anonymously, he had worked briefly for my parents, then quit when he realized their motives. He sent us a thumb drive containing emails, plans, even a hotel reservation for the abduction. It was damning. We forwarded it all to our lawyer. It changed everything. Suddenly, the court treated our case as criminal conspiracy. Megan cried, clutching the drive. "We finally have proof," she whispered. My chest tightened. It was far from over. When the thumb drive contents were reviewed in court, Ryan's expression cracked. The emails showed my mother discussing Ray education tactics. One message even asked if duct tape left marks. The courtroom fell silent. My father stared at the floor. The judge called a recess. Outside, reporters swarmed us. I held Megan's hand tight. "We did this," she said. I nodded. For once, truth wasn't buried under legacy or blood. It was rising loud and undeniable. My aunt, long silent, took the stand next. She wept as she confessed she had known about the plan, but had been too scared to intervene. "I thought they'd stop," she said. Her testimony confirmed the conspiracy and shattered the illusion of a normal family. Ryan's defense tried to discredit her, but the damage was done. Even their allies started stepping back. A legacy of control, entitlement, and silence was unraveling under oath. In real time, one morning, I found a Bible outside our door. Inside was a note: "Forgive and forget. Blood binds, no signature." Megan tore it in half. "They want submission, not peace," she said. I burned it in the sink. It was a last gasp, a veiled threat disguised as reconciliation. We installed a new security system the same day. No more loopholes, no more mercy. If they wanted redemption, they'd have to find it behind bars. Ryan's fiancé leaked their private group chat. It showed him bragging about how easy it was to manipulate the old man and mock Megan's trauma. Screenshots went viral, even his remaining supporters turned brands cut ties, his job terminated him officially. The fall was public and humiliating. I watched it unfold in silence. Megan only said, "He's not done until we're safe." We both knew this wasn't justice yet. But it was a crack in his armor. Then came the fake therapist. My parents produced a woman who claimed I'd been violent as a child. Our lawyer cross-examined her. Turns out she wasn't licensed. A family friend paid to perform. That lie collapsed in court. The judge was livid. "This is obstruction," she snapped. Charges were added. Megan squeezed my knee. For every truth they buried, 3 lies spilled out. But we were ready now with facts, allies, and something they never had: truth. We received an anonymous tip: check the storage unit rented under my mother's maiden name. Police got a warrant. Inside were Megan's clothes, letters we'd never seen, and a burnt journal labeled for Lucas when he obeys. The detective called it psychological warfare. Megan stared at the journal, hollow. "They were prepping for total control," she whispered. "This wasn't just kidnapping, it was planned indoctrination." I filed for a restraining order that same hour. Every minute mattered. A surprise witness surfaced: my childhood friend, Kevin. He'd cut ties with my family years ago, but he showed up in court, shaky and pale. Holding of his tape. "I found this cleaning my dad's garage," he said. "It was an old birthday party. Ryan smashing my cake, my parents laughing, me crying in the corner." The judge watched silently. That footage spoke louder than testimony. It wasn't just a family feud, it was a history of harm. The media ran with Kevin's footage. Talk shows debated our story. Therapists analyzed the golden child syndrome. Victims of toxic families emailed us, sharing their pain. Megan created a private forum for survivors. In weeks, it had thousands of members. We weren't alone. That realization healed something deep. The abuse wasn't unique, it was systematic. They wanted to erase us, but they amplified our voice instead. The louder we got, the smaller Ryan's empire became. Ryan tried one final trick. He forged a letter claiming Megan had a breakdown and begged for the family's help. The handwriting was close, but our lawyer spotted inconsistencies. Forensics confirmed it was fake. Ryan was arrested for evidence tampering. As they cuffed him, he screamed that we ruined him. Megan didn't flinch. I watched silently. There was no joy, just relief. Lies had carried him for years. Now, they were the chain dragging him down. Court adjourned with multiple verdicts. My parents were found guilty of kidnapping and conspiracy, Ryan, of tampering and harassment. Sentencing would follow. As we stepped out, news cameras flashed. Megan gripped my hand and whispered, "We're free." I nodded, but it didn't feel like a victory. Just survival. Justice in its coldest form. I glanced back once. Ryan stared through the window, unblinking. His empire of lies had collapsed, but the scar he left was permanent. Weeks later, Megan woke from a nightmare screaming my name. I held her until dawn. Even after the verdicts, trauma clung to our nights. We started therapy together. Some days she couldn't speak, others she raged. I listened. We tore down every family photo, repainted the hallway, changed every lock. Healing wasn't peace, it was war in slow motion. But we were fighting together now, not just for us but for the life we refused to let them ruin. Megan suggested we foster a dog. Something that never lied to us, she said. We met Max, a 3-legged rescue with deep eyes. He limped into our home like he's always belonged. Megan smiled for the first time in days. That night, Max curled at our feet as we slept. Not every scar had healed, but his soft breathing felt like hope. We'd lost family but built something new. One breath, one paw, one honest heartbeat at a time. A cousin once silent messaged an apology. I believed them. "I'm sorry." More followed. One aunt dropped off baked goods. Another sent a card. Megan kept them in a showbox labeled truths. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was accountability. I replied to each message, "Thank you. We're moving forward." We didn't need their love, but their honesty helped cleanse old wounds. Every truth, however late, chipped away at the rot my parents planted, not healing, but honesty, and that mattered. Megan got accepted into a trauma advocacy program. She cried reading the email. "Maybe we can help someone," she said. Her strength humbled me. She'd faced abduction, gaslighting, betrayal, and still chose to fight for others. I watched her draft her first blog post. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Every word she typed was a blade cutting through silence. She wasn't just surviving, she was turning pain into purpose, and I stood behind her proud. Ryan tried appealing his conviction, claiming trial bias due to media coverage. The judge denied it, citing overwhelming evidence. "You orchestrated this," she said. "And now you face the consequences." Megan and I sat in the gallery silent. It felt final. A door closing on years of torment. As we walked out, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. His story was over. Ours was still being written, and this time no one else held the pen. We got a letter from Ryan handwritten, no return address. It apologized for nothing, just blamed, claimed we ruined his life. Megan burned it without a word. I didn't ask. Some bridges aren't meant to stand, some bloodlines don't bind, they choke. That night, we toasted to silence, to boundaries, to never letting guilt masquerade as obligation again. The fire crackled as the letter turned to ash. Ryan had spoken his last words to us, we'd moved on. A year after it all began, we hosted a small gathering, friends. Allies, the lawyer who never gave up. Megan baked, I grilled, no speeches, no toasts, just peace. Max ran through the yard, tail high. I caught Megan watching him, smiling softly. We made it, she said. I nodded. It wasn't a grand victory, just a quiet one. But it was ours, built from truth, defended with pain, and sealed with the people who chose us. The court awarded us full ownership of the house, nullifying every false claim. Our lawyer framed the ruling for us. It hangs in our hallway now beside Megan's acceptance letter and Max's adoption certificate. 3 documents, proof of what we built, saved, and protected. People ask why we stayed in that house. Simple, it's ours. Not because it was given, but because we fought for it. Every wall carries a scar, every room a victory. At a speaking event, Megan shared our story publicly for the first time. Her voice trembled at first but steadied. They tried to define us with fear, she said. We chose love and law. The room erupted in applause. Afterward, survivors hugged her, crying. I stood by the door, holding her coat, watching her shine. Her trauma hadn't vanished, but she turned it into a beacon. I saw the girl I married, and the woman she became. One night, we revisited the motel where Megan had been held. It had new owners. The room was repainted, the locks changed, but Megan stood there, silent. I need to see it, she said. Inside, she ran her fingers along the wall. Then she left a note in the nightstand. I survived. Nothing dramatic, no tears, just closure. We walked out hand in hand. She didn't flinch. The past was still there, but it didn't own her anymore. The judge released her written opinion, in bold print, a pattern of familial abuse disguised as concern. It became a legal precedent in our state for coercive control. Advocacy groups cited it. Megan framed a copy. They tried to erase me, she said. But now I'm a footnote in law. Her smile wasn't triumphant, it was tired, real. We weren't just a case anymore. We were a turning point. One that might save someone else one day. We finally visited Megan's parents. She hadn't seen them in years, kept distant out of fear. But they welcomed us warmly. Her mom held her tight, crying. We should have done more, she said. No excuses, just regret. Megan didn't speak at first, then whispered. I'm safe now. That was enough. Not forgiveness, just connection, a bridge to something healthier. We left with leftovers, tired smiles, and a sense that maybe, just maybe, not all family is a battlefield. On our 2nd anniversary, Megan surprised me with a scrapbook. Not of trauma, but of us, our house, Max, coffee dates, court victories, a life reclaimed. Proof, she said, that they didn't win. I flipped through pages filled with mundane joy, smiles, notes, even burnt pancakes. It hit me, resilience wasn't loud, it was quiet mornings. Shared routines and laughter that came back eventually. They tried to break us, but we'd built something unshakable. Picture by picture, word by word, a university reached out. They wanted Megan to guest lecture on trauma recovery. She almost declined, then accepted. I sat in the back row. She spoke with grace, detail, and a steady voice. No victimhood, just clarity. One student asked, how did you stay strong? Megan smiled, looked my way, and said, I didn't. I fell apart. But I rebuilt with truth, with help, with love. The room applauded. I wiped my eyes. She wasn't just healing, she was leading. The final paperwork came in. Ryan's appeal was permanently denied. No more court dates. No more shadows. Megan framed the notice beside our wedding photo. The end, she said. But I knew it was really a beginning. A life without fear, without gaslighting, without pretending blood equals loyalty. We planted a tree in the backyard that afternoon. Its roots deep, its future untouched, like us, finally free, finally growing, and finally, at peace in our own home. Looking back, the pain wasn't sudden, it was layered. Years of dismissal, silent favoritism, invisible wounds. I spent decades trying to earn love from people who only offered control. Megan helped me see that, not with lectures, but with presence, with kindness. The symbol wasn't the house. It was her hand in mine, her voice in court, her laugh after nightmares. They tried to erase us. Instead, they carved a truth deeper than their lies ever reached. Therapy taught me a word I'd never heard growing up: boundaries. It felt foreign, then powerful. I learned it was okay to block a parent, to walk away from a sibling. Blood wasn't a free pass to harm. I wrote that on a sticky note above my desk. Family doesn't hurt you on purpose. It became my filter, my shield. And slowly, my world got quieter, safer. Smaller maybe, but real. The kind of small that holds peace. Sometimes I still flinch when the doorbell rings. Some scars don't fade, they just dull. But I greet guests now without fear. Max usually gets there first, tail wagging. Megan's laughter from the kitchen calms me. We created that safety, not gifted, built, rebuilt, fortified. It's not dramatic, but it's everything. Safety is sacred when you've lived without it, and every normal day is a silent rebellion against the chaos we survived. Quiet is our revolution. I used to think cutting ties meant giving up. But distance saved us. Every mile from their grip gave room for truth, for joy. I've redefined love not as obligation, but as action, as kindness, safety, and respect. The people who show up, stay honest, and help you grow, those are family. Megan, Max, even our little support group, that's my family now. No shared DNA, just shared dignity. And that's more binding than blood ever was. I keep one photo from the past, me and Ryan, age 7, arms slung over each other, a lie in pixels, but I don't keep it for nostalgia. I keep it to remind myself how far I've come. That little boy deserved better. Now he has it, in me, in Megan, in the life we forged through fire. I'm not angry anymore, just resolute. That photo is the last piece of them I let stay. On hard days, I reread our court transcripts. Not out of spite but validation. Each page a record of resilience. Proof we weren't crazy, weren't wrong. We were just unheard for too long. I highlight Megan's testimony, her voice, unwavering. That moment she said, "Love doesn't isolate." It echoes in my head whenever doubt creeps in. We didn't just fight a family, we fought a belief system and we won. That paper, that's our declaration of sanity. At support meetings I hear echoes of our story. Different names, same pain. I tell them, "You're not crazies, you're just waking up." That line always lands. Because waking up hurts, the first light after gaslighting blinds you. But clarity follows, and with it choice. I watch people soften, sit straighter, cry. I never claimed to be healed, just honest, just trying, and in those rooms honesty is revolutionary. Especially when truth was the first thing stolen. Ryan now serves time in a state facility. He appeals occasionally, each time denied. My parents are on probation, banned from contacting us. The court mandated therapy, but we know they'll never change. That's fine. We don't need apologies, just space. Megan and I moved on without waiting for closure. Because some doors don't need to be shut gently, some deserve to slam and lock. And if peace is the sound after that, we'll take it. We started hosting monthly dinners, open invites for friends, neighbors, survivors, no agenda, just food, laughter, and belonging. The first night, a woman cried over pie. "I haven't felt safe in years," she whispered. Megan hugged her. That's what healing looks like, not perfection but warmth. A table with extra chairs. A home without judgment. We aren't experts, just witnesses, survivors offering space. And somehow, in giving that, we healed a little more too. One plate at a time. A local podcast invited us to share our story. At the end, the host asked, "What would you say to others in your shoes?" I paused, then said, "You're allowed to walk away even from family." Megan added, "And you're not broken, just wounded, but wounds heal." The episode went viral, messages poured in, people felt seen. That's all we wanted. Not fame, just resonance. If our pain gives someone else language or strength, worth it. We turned the spare room into a library, shelves, pillows, soft light, a sanctuary. Megan stocks it with books on trauma, justice, love. Guests borrow them, sometimes cry there, sometimes just sit. One evening, I found her asleep on the floor, Max curled beside her. I didn't wake her. That room wasn't just a project, it was a promise. A quiet space for anyone rebuilding. A reminder this house was nearly stolen. Now it shelters strength. We planted a second tree, this one for us. A red maple. Its roots were shallow at first, but strong. Every year, it grows taller. Megan calls it our resilience tree. We watch it from the porch, mugs in hand. Some nights we say nothing, just sit, let the quiet hold us. No drama, no shouting, just breath. We don't need fireworks to feel safe. We just need each other, and a tree that refuses to stop growing. Sometimes strangers stop Megan on the street. "Thank you," they say. Survivors, allies, people who read the article, heard the podcast. Megan always smiles, hugs them if they ask. She never says "you're welcome," just "you deserve better." That phrase became her signature. She's not a victim, she's a mirror showing others their worth. And me, I walk beside her, not as her savior, just her witness, her partner. In a world that tried to erase her, she glows. I started writing again, essays mostly, about power, silence, survival. One got picked up by a major outlet. The headline read, "What happens when family becomes the enemy?" I didn't name names, I didn't have to. Truth resonates. Readers wrote, "This is my story too." That line hit hardest, because it wasn't about revenge, it was about connection. The kind forged in fire, the kind that says, "You're not alone." I wrote it for them and for me. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.